Thank you for joining us, everybody. Today I'm made stops in Grand County, Larimer County, and Boulder counties, really to see the impacts of the fire. The East Troublesome fire still of greatest concern to the most people with active evacuations. We visited with some of the evacuees. Cameron Peak fire, also a number of areas of concern. And here we are in Boulder County, and the Calwood fire is behind us. This is obviously a safe place to be able to chat. We're joined by United States Congressman Joe Neguse from the 2nd Congressional District. Most of the fires have been on federal land, and we're fortunate to have a United States Representative, Joe Neguse, who sits on the Natural Resources Committee. We're very involved with our federal partners. We were joined at different spots by members of the Forest Service. The Calwood fire was actually had the highest percentage of private land as well, significant private land. But Cameron Peak and East Troublesome, over 90%. Federal land, public land, for both mitigation, resiliency. We rely on the relationship with our federal partners. We're also joined by our State Department of Natural Resources Executive Director Dan Gibbs, who will be available for questions as well. Cameron Peak at 206,977 acres. East Troublesome, 170,163 acres. Also, as you know, this year, Pine Gulch, 139,000 acres. So you might recall Pine Gulch at the time, seems like forever ago. I think it was about a month and a half ago. It became the largest fire in our state history. 2 fires have now eclipsed that size. Cameron Peak and East Troublesome. So the 3 largest fires in the history of Colorado have all been this year, and I'll get into those a little bit. Two main reasons that we're seeing this increased risk, and frankly, this is something that Colorado needs to plan for because it isn't changing. One is the hotter, drier climate, the statewide drought, climate change, the changing conditions. 2 is just the increased population, utilization of land. Many of the fires were caused by human activity. Pending final investigation, the initial reports are East Troublesome was caused by human activity as well. There are some other fires. Most of the families have returned in Boulder County to their homes, and while some have lost everything, most were able to return safely. The ice fire fires, 596 acres and 30% contained. You know, the biggest, I think, takeaway that, for all of us in these fires is just a sense of great humility in the face of nature that we have with regard to these large events. When there's a unfavorable wind, there's very little that man or machine can do to stop a rapid spread of the virus. The resources we do have, and we were over at the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport and some of the jet tanker, air tanker crews, they are deployed in a targeted way. We have great capabilities, usually used right around perimeter control to prevent spread to population centers, not necessarily for meaningful impact on the main body of the fire, but really effective in those targeted interventions to prevent spread across additional corridors that could lead to loss of property and loss of life. Wednesday night, and Wednesday was the day that the Troublesome fire just rapidly had its run. Wednesday, we activated the National Guard to assist with search and rescue operations, aerial surveillance in the Troublesome fire area. I think it's important to know that in these times that we really show this great Colorado spirit. I mean, it's communities coming together to help one another. In East Troublesome, we saw folks from the town manager to the emergency response people, most of whom were under evacuation orders themselves, still on the job working to help others because that's what they do. At Rocky Mount Metro Airport, they have 6 large air tankers. They turn them around very, very quickly, 15, 20 minutes, in and out, loaded up, fire retardant, back out. 39 helicopters are committed to specific fires. And the Cameron Peak Fire, where we went to the Incident Command Center in Loveland today, we got a briefing on the potential risks of that fire as well. The next 24 to 36 hours, very touch and go with both East Troublesome, Cameron Peak, and our meteorological experts continue to expect precipitation late Saturday. That this is and we hope that this is towards the larger end of the projections, towards the longer end of the projections for snow, and that can make a definitive change in the fires. Before I go over to Congressman Neguse, I want to give a quick coronavirus update. First, you should know that all the evacuations are being done in as safe a way as possible with regard to the threat of coronavirus in mind. In the past, there's congregate settings and high school gyms, and these are images and practices that have occurred. This is being done in a much safer way, minimalizing the need for people to be in living together with beds side by side, utilization of hotel rooms, trying to give people that are evacuated, that don't have a safe place to go to, the opportunity to retain safe from coronavirus as well. It's the same with the fire camps. Again, traditionally, fire camps, often hundreds of people living together, shared, showers, dining hall, mess hall. That's not happening this fire. It's distributed. People are living in tents. They're in different areas. There's not one kitchen. There's not one mess hall or latrine, and it's been effective. There's been unfortunately firefighters that have come down and with symptoms, but it's been able to prevent the kind of larger outbreak that we know would occur if folks were living together in a congregate way. Today, Colorado had just over 1,350 new cases of coronavirus. We also had a new record for testing, 25,756 tests. So we're proud of that. If you do have symptoms, please get tested. Another way this relates to the air quality in the fires is for many people, if you're experiencing a cough, sore throat, respiratory issues, you may, in normal circumstances when we're not in a pandemic, just think that's the fires. And it may very well be the air in the fires, but it also may be coronavirus given how rampant that is in our state. Please get tested if you're experiencing any respiratory symptoms, even if you think they are from the fires. The state is also trying to get ahead of this. There was a public health order today that limits gathering size, personal gatherings, 10 and under, but even more importantly, just no more than 2 households. What does that mean? A few weeks ago, we celebrated my son's 9th birthday. We had about 10 kids, and we did an outdoor socially distanced party. They did a scavenger hunt over the yard. If my kid's birthday was coming up, we would not do that today. That would be against the current health orders. What you should do if you have an important event like that, at most, have your son's best friend and their family, so one family, together with you. You can celebrate safely outdoors. Or just, tell your kid, look, we're going to celebrate your half birthday this year. We're going to do a bigger party in 6 months. But due to the changing health conditions, since we always share what, we would do for our family, if my son or daughter's birthday was coming up, we would not have that kind of event with classmates or parents. We would either delay it or do it with one family. So the current health guidelines in Colorado, hopefully reversing this trend, which is still accelerating, over 1,300 cases today. Hospitalizations also increased just in the last 24 hours. We are now, I'll get the number here for you, we are now at 458 hospitalizations. That's an increase of 12 people that are hospitalized with this deadly virus. Many will recover and some will not. And even those who do recover often have a very difficult and long recovery process, can take many weeks or months. And there's many folks that I've talked to and heard from that haven't returned to their full health even months after encountering the virus. So we want to make this simple for Coloradans. Coloradans always ask me, what can I do to stay safe? It's the same things. Wear your mask when you're around others. Wash your hands regularly. And now the new guidance, avoid groups of more than 10 and only go out or socialize or hang out with one other household at a time. Why is that important, right? When it gets into a household, usually everybody catches it. Occasionally, somebody won't, but usually if you're a family of 4, you all get it or none of you get it. So if there's 4 or 5 households together, that can rapidly go from one person to 30 people, 40 people, even if there's only 5 people there. If it's 5 households, they each bring it back to theirs. By limiting the number of households sort of in your bubble that you associate with, hanging out with one other family, you're just reducing the risk almost exponentially. For yourself, for your family, for your friend's family, but then for us as a society, us as a state, where we've got to reverse this trend where it's going the wrong way, not only threatening people's lives, but also threatening our economic recovery and threatening the small businesses which are having a tough time get through this. So I know we can do better, especially with this new health guidance. We look forward to following that and encouraging our fellow Coloradans to solve that. Only hang out with one other household, less than 10 people. Be safe, just as we are doing our best to keep our firefighters safe, just as we're doing the best to keep our evacuees safe from coronavirus, many of whom face an uncertain return. We have a champion for our public lands and land management from Colorado and Washington, D.C. That partnership will be more important than ever before, both with regards to coronavirus and the fire recovery, resiliency, mitigation, and reduction of risk in future years. I am honored to introduce one of our leaders in Colorado in helping to make sure that we have strong stewardship over our federal lands, Congressman Joe Neguse.
Good afternoon. First, let me just say thank you to Governor Polis for his incredible leadership during a very trying and tough time for our state. There are many of my colleagues in Congress, his former colleagues, who have told me on many occasions just how impressed they are with the governor's leadership as we've dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic and the very serious public health challenges and economic challenges that we have faced as a result thereof. I'm certainly grateful for his leadership of our state during this very tough time. I applaud his decision to call upon the National Guard to assist earlier this week with respect to the East Troublesome fire. And I want to also thank his team, who have been so responsive in helping in the multi-agency robust response to these wildfires, whether it's Executive Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Dan Gibbs, who was out there fighting on the front lines of the fire in Cameron Peak, as well as Executive Director of the Department of Public Safety, Stan Hilke, and the CDOT Executive Director, Shoshana Liu, all of whom have worked, I know, tirelessly with local officials and federal officials as well to make sure that our response is robust as possible. As I said, this has been a tough year for our country and certainly for our state and our communities, and this brutal fire season is no exception. There are 4 fires now in the 2nd Congressional District, 2 of which are the largest in the history of our state, as the governor articulated. Cameron Peak, the largest in our history, and now the East Troublesome Fire, of course, in Grand County, and the Boulder County fires, Calwood and Left Hand Canyon Fire. We are grateful, I should say, first and foremost, to the incredible first responders who continue to put themselves on the line to protect our state. We started this morning, as the governor mentioned, in Grand County, and to visit with the sheriff there, to hear the stories of heroism and bravery demonstrated by those firefighters who worked tirelessly to evacuate as many as they could from Grand County to protect Grand Lake and Granby and the communities in that part of our state is nothing short of incredible. And we owe a debt of gratitude to the sheriff in Grand County, to Sheriff Pelley here in Boulder County, Sheriff Smith in Larimer County, the deputies, the first responders, the firefighters, all of whom are working today as we speak to do everything we can to combat these terrible wildfires. I also want to say express my gratitude to the American Red Cross of Colorado and Wyoming. They have stepped up to the plate in ways that are hard to describe. My understanding is the project that they have now undertaken in terms of assisting those who have been evacuated from the communities I mentioned, as well as Estes Park and various parts of northern Larimer County, upwards of almost 19,000 people. Is the third largest project in the United States this year. And you think about all the hurricanes and the wildfires that our country has experienced, and you can better understand the enormity and the gravity of the work that those Red Cross volunteers are doing right now across the Front Range, across Larimer, Boulder, and Grand counties to help people who have lost their homes, who've lost all of their belongings, and who are experiencing a very challenging time. The governor and I both were grateful to be able to deliver a message today to those folks impacted that we will be there with them, that we are with them now, and we will be there tomorrow and the day after. It will be a long road to recovery, and as the governor said, I think the next 36 hours, in particular with respect to the East Troublesome fire, will be a challenging 36 hours. So I hope all Coloradans can continue to lift up the first responders and those who have been impacted by these fires in their thoughts and their prayers, and we're certainly hoping for as much moisture as we can over the course of the next 2 days. As the governor said, there's a lot of work for us to do in Washington, both in terms of ensuring that the federal response meets the scale and the enormity of these fires, and we're certainly going to be doing precisely that, and then also long term, as we think about both climate adaptation and mitigation in the realities of climate change and the way in which the drought conditions are exacerbating these wildfires, and forest management, working with the Forest Service and our partners in federal government to ensure that we're doing everything we can to protect these wonderful, iconic spaces and our communities and all of us who are so blessed to be able to call these wonderful places home. So thank you all for coming, and with that, I'll turn it back to you, Governor.
You know, I've never been so happy for it to be cold and damp like it is right now, and my fingers are a little numb, and that fills me with joy at the potential homes that can save and the help that can be, and we need more of that. We're joined by a number of elected officials. I want to thank, we have Boulder County Commissioner Elise Jones and Matt Jones and Deb Gardner are with us, and Boulder County Sheriff Joe Pelly, who was with us touring some of the sites earlier. A lot of folks are asking, what can I do? What can I do if you don't live in one of the affected areas? You live in Lakewood or Thornton, Aurora, or Denver. What can I do to help? ColoradoResponds.org is a site that connects donors to verified organizations that are helping folks on the ground. You also can help on a fire-specific basis. BoulderCountyFires.com for this fire here for those affected. LarimerCountyFires.com, and then GrandCountyFires.com. To support specifically families, victims, communities affected by the specific viruses. If you want to make sure you're signed up for fire alerts to get early voluntary warnings and to be reached the minute there might be a risk in your area, you can sign up at coloradofirealerts.com. I want to end my remarks on really thanking our firefighters, rescue professionals, and support staff. Words really cannot fully express the gratitude that we all have as a state for the work that you do, our professional firefighters, others that have answered the call of duty, drop what they're doing, run towards the flames, firefighters on the ground, incident command teams working 24 hours, 7 days a week, our county sheriff's departments leading the way, and of course the communities that are really stepping up. So on behalf of a grateful state of Colorado, I want to express our gratitude to the men and women who are fighting the fires to keep the rest of us safe. With that, we'll take some questions. And you can direct them to Congressman Neguse or myself or both. Yes. Well, you know, I think when I see the bellowing smoke, which depending on where you live, and we saw and most Coloradans saw in the distance, your first thought is where's that coming from? Who's that affecting? And then getting the briefing on what's going on the ground and how fast it moved, and how the state needs to respond nimbly, meeting with the local partners to help supply their needs. So the local partners, the state, acted swiftly. The reason that some of these fires had the runs they did were fast-moving winds and very dry conditions, and that is a deadly combination, which led to the record growth of fires over the last couple days.
Governor, in light of the recent wildfires, is your administration looking to enact any new rules or policies to address
Well, again, there's really I think that there's two risk factors that Colorado has to struggle with regard to fire safety over the next years and decades, and those are climate change, and that doesn't mean that every summer will be long and dry. Last summer wasn't. This summer was. It means we will see more longer and drier fire seasons, reaching later into the year at risk of greater severity of fire. The second factor is simply the population growth and public land utilization in our state. We have a lot more people than we did 20 years ago and 40 years ago, and that means we need to learn to coexist better with nature and have better fire safety practices as we enjoy our vast, great outdoors. Well, we recently introduced our greenhouse gas roadmap just a few weeks ago, really with the bold climate policy and goals and a plan to achieve them. It's over 170 pages of detail about how Colorado can lead the way in achieving not only 100% renewable energy by 2040, which is one of our wildly important goals of my administration and one of the bold four that we hope to put the state on the route on during my time in service, but also look at additional air quality improvements and carbon reductions across different sectors of our economy while creating the good green jobs of the future right here in Colorado. Un poco más fuerte, por favor. Sí, 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 sí. Este año los incendios más grandes de toda la historia de Colorado están activos en algunas partes de nuestro estado. Aquí en Boulder County, en Larimer County y Grand County hay tres incendios grandes, hay algunos otros en otras partes del estado. Quiero dar nuestras gracias a los bomberos del estado, quienes están luchando en los incendios y están trabajando en todas las horas de la noche para proteger nuestras casas y comunidades. Yeah, I'll go to Congressman Goose, but we have a great partnership with the federal government. We have a great partnership on resources, on stewardship through the Emergency Command Center. They're in close contact. I'll turn it over to Congressman Goose.
Yeah, just as the governor mentioned, the federal delegation is certainly deeply engaged with the governor and the state response, as has been the case throughout all the natural disasters and emergencies that our state has experienced this year, including, of course, the public health pandemic. With respect to the fires, federal management assistant grants have been approved at the governor's request and at the request of the delegation by FEMA, both for, well, the Cameron Peak fire, the FMAG was approved, I believe, 2 months ago, but for the East Troublesome fire, the Calwood fire and Cameron Peak fire, those were approved about 7 days ago. So we'll certainly be working to make sure that there's full reimbursement up to the 75% limit and pushing for even further, our hope is. In addition, of course, we'll be pushing the federal government to ensure that the cost share for the National Guard is fully appropriated by the federal government in light of the work, the incredible sacrifices that the National Guard is making right now, helping folks up in Grand County, the East Troublesome fire, and I suspect there'll be more to come. So we're certainly continuing to engage in conversations about how best we can make the case for additional federal resources. Yeah, the grants covers up to 75% of the reimbursement for firefighting costs. So ultimately, that'll, the costs are being expended as we speak in real time. So we'll have a better sense of that in the coming months. I think the focus right now is on protecting lives and protecting homes and protecting our communities. And we'll continue to make the case in Washington for the federal resources to ensure that those are covered.
Final question? Thank you all. Stay safe. Again, if you're experiencing symptoms that you think might be related to the air quality and the fires, please get a coronavirus test. It is currently on a rampant resurgence in our state. That's why there's the new health orders to not have a gathering of more than 10 people, to only, if you have to see somebody, just do it with one other household. But it's a much better time to stay safer at home. Keep yourself, your family, your loved ones safe, our community safe, as we cheer on our firefighters in our communities and do our best to make sure that as many evacuees as possible can return safely home as soon as possible and help those who've lost everything find a way way to get on with their lives with a resilient Colorado spirit that we all have. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Aunque no le deben
Oh, that's right.
You got a couple things to pick up?
I'm pretty sure Robbie would not be happy to on call.
I don't know. I just was in that all night. I was like, oh my God. This isn't as bad as I thought last year.
Sunday off.